Welcome to CrossFit Alaya Unleashed podcast, where we discuss health and fitness, mindset and business with your host, Coach Lloyd. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram at Alaya Unleashed, where we post updates and teasers on our upcoming guests and podcasts. Here we go, episode 18 of the Alaya Unleashed podcast. We are back. It's been a little while. Lloyd's been busy, but we're back. And the guest that I have with me today, I've given what you listeners and viewers wanted, because when I did put a poll on the Instagram, people was asking for this certain guest. So today we do have indeed a member of the gym. She comes pretty much every day. Her name is Bushra. Hello.
Hi.
Thanks for coming on my podcast.
Thank you for having me.
I know I've had to drag you on, but finally you're here.
I mean, it wasn't a drag anyway.
I mean, we got there in the end.
Yeah.
So we are basically going to cover a little bit on Bushra.
Okay.
We're going to cover all things fitness, all things food, and all things business. And you're basically going to get to know Bushra a little bit more, which is what I've just done in the past 30 minutes, having to have a conversation how we're going to take this podcast. But I'm excited about this. And again, I've given what the viewers wanted, so everyone's going to be happy. I just want you to introduce yourself to everyone, who you are, where you're from, your age, just all the little nitty-gritty stuff.
I'm Bushra.
Hello.
I'm from the UAE. I'm 27 years old. I feel a lot older ever since I started doing CrossFit.
Shh, don't say that.
So I'm into all things fitness. I'm into all things food. I love bringing those two worlds together in my tiny little social media page. That's basically me in a few words.
I think fitness and food go well.
Yeah.
And we'll talk about this later in the podcast, relationship between fitness and food. You shouldn't be training just to eat food. You should never feel bad for eating something where you've got to train. So we'll be talking a little bit about that. Let's just start off with the younger Bushra. I mean, you're still pretty young now, but the younger version of you. You obviously grew up in the UAE. You are Emirati. You obviously studied here. What did you do after school? So did you go to university? What did you study?
I studied international studies. So a lot of my courses were like international relations, political science, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And then 2 years into that, I realized, this is not what I want to be studying. But I went with it,
So you studied for 3 years or longer?
I was supposed to study for 4.
Mm-hmm.
I studied for 5.
Wow.
Well, yeah.
Crazy. So after that 5 years of, political science or whatever you might want to call it, what jobs would you go into from that sort of degree?
So
what would you be looking for?
I personally didn't want. After I graduated, I wanted to explore things outside of my field.
Yeah.
So I didn't want to work in that field, But I didn't find a job. I couldn't find a job for like 3 years, and I was at that time basically doing nothing.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people don't like to admit that they were doing nothing, but I did nothing. I was just existing at the time, and I was very unhappy because I didn't know what I wanted to do. I knew that I didn't want to do anything that had to do with my field, but I didn't know what else to do, moving on from that, like 3 years later, I did find a job. I don't necessarily know how to explain. It was a temporary job, and I quit after a month, just because I thought, I can't. Being unemployed for 3 years and then moving on to like 9 to 5, I was like, okay, I thought this was what I wanted, but it wasn't,
So you being a lady of leisure for 2 years was basically too good than working 9 to 5.
I mean, yeah. But I was not happy because I felt like I was being unproductive. So obviously, like doing nothing is not fun,
If you was to look back in them 3 years now, where you did nothing,
Yes.
I'm sure you did something, but what would you do differently if you went back now and had them 2 years? What would you do?
I would have started this fitness journey a lot earlier. Honestly, I found so much happiness and solace and peace and like everything when I started training. Yeah. Like I used to train on and off, as I told you before, like when I was 16. and I knew I enjoyed it, but I didn't know that it would impact me the way that it does today, and I'd enjoyed this much. And if I, started this journey when I had like a younger body, a younger, healthier body, I don't know where I would have been today.
Yeah.
But I'm glad that I started it,
For sure.
Yeah.
So it was at the end of them 2 years that you found CrossFit, was it?
Yes.
Yeah.
I actually found a job when I started, was it like 3 months after starting CrossFit? And, I quit, honestly, mostly because I was enjoying my time doing fitness so much that I didn't have time to do, all the fitness stuff. And it was at that time where I, tried like 5:30 a.m. a couple of times. And, I started doing class outside of 9 a.m. But yeah, I thought, when I quit, I was like, I need to be doing something in fitness or food, because those are the two things that I enjoy, So, yeah.
Looking back now on, you starting CrossFit, what was it that made you start CrossFit, or who was it? Was there some sort of impact, or did something happen that you was like, right, I need to get my butt off this seat now after doing nothing for 2 years? What was it that made you get up and try CrossFit or do something like this?
Okay, so I knew that I wanted to start strength training, but honestly, like for years, I was just too scared to try CrossFit, because I think the people that I wouldn't say the people I was surrounded with, but from like what I saw on social media, first of all, it's extremely intimidating. And second of all, like I had that mentality of like, I wanted to be as small as possible. And when I saw women training, doing CrossFit, I was like intimidated by that body. I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to be like, super bulky, and which is a horrible way to think, honestly, because there was an extreme mind shift after when I started doing CrossFit. But coming from like where I just wanted to be super tiny and small. I was extremely intimidated by the sport, and I was scared of what my body is going to look like if I started doing it, But then I don't know. I can't tell you what made me just like, bite the bullet and go to class. But, when I did try it for the first time, it was just, I've never experienced training like that before. I've done PT, I've done like normal gymming, just like going on the Stairmaster.
Yeah.
But training like that, like training for a skill, trying like Olympic lifts, never in my life did I think that I would pick up a barbell and do that, So yeah, it completely, it changed the way that I thought. And I knew from the first class that like this is something that I'm going to stick with,
For sure. How long ago was that now? When did you start?
That was 2 years.
Oh, 2 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, so not long.
Yeah, but I don't think I would even recognize myself 2 years ago.
No,
I'm
which is a good thing.
person.
It shows how far you've come.
Yes.
Physically and mentally, which we'll get onto after. So any piece of advice that you'd want to give people who was in the same sort of shoes as you back in the day 2 years ago, when people are sort of thinking about doing something, wanting to try CrossFit, but might have these pre-assumptions of they might get too bulky? What do you say to these people?
Get out of your comfort zone. Get out of your comfort zone. Long walks are great. Like regular, those classes that everybody does outside is great. But like CrossFit, or I wouldn't say CrossFit, just the style of training that pushes you to limits where you didn't think that you even wanted to explore, Like, do things that scare you,
So you've done this with regards to CrossFit or simple stuff that scares you, such as jumping on a box, whatever it might be, right?
Yeah.
What have you learned from, pushing yourself to this point? Like, what have you got from pushing your limits or stepping out of your comfort zone? How has it helped you?
It helped me think, okay, I started thinking this way. What's the worst that could happen? Honestly, what is the worst that could happen? Like, I'm the type of person that gets very panicky and scared over the tiniest little things. But I learned to tell myself, خلاص, okay, even if it's scary at the moment, I try to just visualize how I would feel like after achieving that goal. It was very difficult for me to think that way before, Yeah. But like with these little things, just seeing myself overcome the simplest things just helped me become so much more confident.
Yeah,
You know,
love it.
confident in myself. Yeah.
I've definitely seen a different Bushra over the past few months and year or so. It's definitely good to see. Let's talk more about you and your fitness. Obviously, I think the first class you tried might have been like a 5:30 class where you had to get up early and come in and do the 5:30 class. But you obviously found a love for the ladies only timing. So you come in the CrossFit LIF, which for those that don't know, we basically have a ladies only time from 9 a.m. till 11 a.m. So if anyone is watching and wants to come and try CrossFit for the first time, that is a perfect time to come, especially if you're female. Obviously, you're only females allowed in at that time. Come and give it a go. Bushra might even be there and she can help you out. But let's tell people about you, the 9 a.m. class, and sort of what happened with those ladies over there.
Okay, so honestly, I was so lucky that I got to meet the most incredible group of women that train at 9 a.m. And, you know, there's not a lot of light being shed on that class, obviously, for like, you know, obvious reasons. But like the women in that class completely changed my mindset on training and just the way that I view myself and how I view other women and just how I view other people, you know. They were so focused on their training. They didn't sandbag any workout. These women, they're incredible. They don't sandbag any workout, you know. They push themselves to the limit. Like, they are super supportive. Like, even, like you were mentioned, the box jumps, yeah. So I remember I fell off the box once, and if I fall off the box, then I'm like, I can't jump on the box for the next week, you know? And so I was doing step overs instead of box jumps that day. And one of the ladies, she's incredible, in class, she was watching me do the step overs. And then I was just like, in my head, I was telling myself, "Khalas, Bushra, you need to jump," you know? And like, one rep after the other, eventually I managed to jump for the next few reps. And she saw me struggle, you know, that entire week. And she came to me after class and she hugged me and she's like, "I'm so proud of you. You were able to overcome that." Like, and you wouldn't even think that somebody else is watching in class and rooting for you to do good, you know? They're incredible. Like, they're not focused on, you know, being tiny or like wanting to look a certain way. They were so focused on the skill itself and, you know, the weight on the barbell and not like the weight on their body or somebody else's body. It is an incredibly healthy environment. You know, like, I thrived in that 9 a.m. class. I think the women there are some of the most incredible women I've ever met in my life, you know? And mashallah, they're mothers, you know, which is like the most difficult job to have. Yeah. And they still manage to push themselves, you know, in their fitness and be just incredible mothers that are present. It was just extremely inspiring to see.
Yeah. I think, like you said, it's very important that you surround yourself with like-minded people or people that are more successful as as you or fitter than you, just to try and, you know, push your boundaries, make yourself a better person.
They're incredibly fit and just amazing.
Yeah, it's good to hear. What are you currently like training for now? So when you go and train, you're training for performance, you're just trying to get better. Like, why do you carry on coming to the gym? What are you working towards? Is it a Bushra 2.0? Is it just like a longevity thing? Like, what is it that you train for in life?
Okay, so right now I'm very focused on just getting stronger. Like, so my lifts have been heavier because I feel like I'm taking a step back a bit, you know, focusing on strength. I just want to get really, really strong because my initial goal was like, I want to look at the board and not scale anything, you know, and that's still my goal. So I'm working towards that. I'm taking a step back with all the volume, you know, and just focusing on strength at the moment. So yeah, I do want to see a Bushra 2.0, you know. I have a vision for the next year, inshallah, yani.
Go on, what's your vision?
Like I said, I just want to look at the board
just a
and not
version.
Yeah, just a super strong version. Let's hope, you know. Aim for the sky.
I think if I was to look back on my sort of CrossFit journey, it did get a lot better when you're able to sort of do RX workouts.
Yes, exactly.
Knowing that, you know, if a bar muscle up comes up, that you can do them, or a rope climb comes up, or a certain weight, you know, that once you reach that point, I think it does become a little bit more fun.
Yeah, exactly.
But still, that doesn't mean that obviously you can't have fun doing CrossFit. It just means that you have to do a lighter weight. If that
it's a ton of fun. I mean, you know.
But it's definitely a good goal to walk towards. Yes. And I think a lot of people have that certain same goal as you, because it's not easy to be able to do everything that it says on the board.
No, and also like it's sometimes difficult to compare like, yourself to people who have been doing this for so many years. Because I don't come from a sporting background. You know, a lot of people do come from a background of sports. They were gymnasts, or they would like lift really heavy. They're power lifters, whatever. So you kind of also have to be realistic with your approach. Like, yeah, I want to do everything all at once. I want to run fast and lift heavy and do all the gymnastics. But it also takes a lot of mental strength to tell yourself, okay, I need to scale it back and build a, good solid foundation,
I think that's something to touch on, is like having goals that are smart enough goals.
Yes, and you humble yourself,
Yeah, I kind of see both sides of, your goals, where they've got to be realistic, but then I don't also genuinely believe that you shouldn't have something that's so big to work towards that, that you want to achieve, that can seem ridiculous to some people.
Yes, for sure.
So I think it is, have that goal but remain humble.
Yes,
which
exactly.
is what you've just said, which is great. So that's basically Bushra's fitness story, which I feel is great. And again, for those that want to come and try the ladies' timings only, the class is 9 till 10, but you've got an extra hour after there to maybe chill out and ask Bushra questions and stuff like that. So that's cool. Like you said earlier, before we started chatting, is apart from fitness, you have some sort of knowledge, but definitely a big interest on food. So we'll get onto that. Why such a big interest in food? Why are you such a foodie now?
Okay, so I didn't have a very healthy relationship with food growing up. Okay, I think it's because, I always struggled. I always felt like food was, is the enemy. Is gonna make me, look a certain way. Like I didn't want to get bigger, So I would say I had sort of I was never diagnosed, but I knew that there was a problem. Like I wasn't eating comfortably or, intuitively, let's say. Okay, I knew that I was deliberately stopping myself from eating so that I could look a certain way, yeah? But so that made me extremely food focused, It's like it's I don't know how to say this, but it backfired, The less I tried to think about food, the more I was thinking about food. But I also come from my household, like my mom is an amazing cook, so I always, I love that it can be a creative outlet, So there were those two things. I don't know, I always dabbled in the kitchen. I enjoy watching, people cook on TV and stuff like that, and on social media, and I like to try my own recipes and stuff, and I just always had an interest. Like my mom is an extremely good cook, so that's where I feel like I mainly got it from. But then also my disordered relationship with food, I guess, made it even more extreme. I was obsessive at some point, But that mellowed out, alhamdulillah, when I found CrossFit and stuff like that.
And, so how long was it that you were struggling with sort of eating?
Let's say it started when I was maybe 14.
Wow.
Yeah.
And this was just basically not eating enough. You would skip meals.
Yes.
Because you wanted to stay slim or whatever it might be.
Yes.
You didn't want to get bulky. And
I would skip meals. There were times where I would do, lots of cardio. That's also when I started getting into the gym, So yeah, that happened, and it was always turbulent. So I had phases where I would restrict and then be I would eat all out, binge, So it was a cycle, and that went on for quite some time. And even when I started getting into fitness, that was still in the back of my mind. 2 years ago, I hit an all-time low with my weight because I was still watching what I was eating and tracking. So yeah, these two things, they seem contradictory, but they go hand in hand,
For sure.
So at that same time, I was experimenting with recipes. I tried to keep them as low calorie as possible, but I was still experimenting in the kitchen. So it's interesting how these two things sort of,
It surprises me that you obviously had this relationship with food which wasn't great, but then you found a love for sort of baking or being food interested.
Yes.
People would usually if they had a bad relationship with food, they'd probably just hide away from it, not get in the kitchen, not eat whatever's on the plate. They'd just throw away whatever it might be. But then you got in the kitchen. Maybe that's because you was like, you know what, maybe I have control now of how many calories or
Yes.
what I'm putting in. So maybe, you know,
Exactly.
you went to bake, let's say, you know, a blondie, which we'll get onto very shortly, but you know exactly like how much sugar you've put in there, how many calories are in your blondie. So
Yes.
maybe it's a way of just controlling what you're eating
Yeah.
rather than trying to guess.
The more I knew about like macros and calories, and the more I educated myself on that, the more I felt like I was, this is a horrible way to phrase it, but let's say I was allowed to eat those foods because I knew exactly the numbers that were going into my body. But now thinking back, and I hate pushing that narrative, you know? Yes, it's good to be aware of how much you're eating and the portions, but you're always allowed to eat, you know?
So when you was thinking about how many calories you was having or your macros, was there a certain, you know, amount of calories you was having per day, or was it just like trying to keep it minimum?
No, I had a certain amount of
Go on,
calories.
how many calories was it a day?
No, it was decent. Like I would have 1,700, but for the activities, يعني the amount of things that I would do in a day, like I would run and I would go to the gym and I would do this and that. I was hitting like 21 to 23,000 steps a day. I was like losing fat eating يعني that amount, that same amount of calories, you know.
So you obviously wasn't eating enough for what you was doing.
No, it wasn't enough. And it shows in other aspects as well. Like you just can't think clearly, you can't sleep well, you know. Everything is just, your body is like, what are you doing to me? So
Yeah. You can't be productive at work.
yeah, exactly. You can't focus when other people speak.
That's if you work.
Yeah. Self-employed.
Yeah, right. So that's your basically relationship with food now. How is it now?
It is so much better.
How do you see fitness and food? What's your thoughts on that?
Now I'm like, I need to get in enough calories so I can lift heavy.
Yeah.
You know? There's always that voice in the back of your mind, obviously. Like you're like, okay, I'm getting bigger. Yani, you're never fully rid of it, you know? It's always there. But like now, the need for me to lift heavy outweighs that, you know? I just wanna be able to perform at my absolute best while I can in my younger years, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah, يعني alhamdulillah, it's so much better. It is so much better. I came a really long way, you know?
I think in general people do need to know a bit more about nutrition, and we've had a podcast on it before, but I feel like, you know, food isn't the enemy, and you need to fuel for performance, or if you want to get stronger, then you need to obviously eat the calories and the protein and so on. So I think that now you have this sort of mind shift and you're eating for performance or you're eating to get stronger. I think that's really good, and more people actually need to be aware of that. But yeah, that's obviously you and all the macros and calories, and you enjoying your relationship with food now, which is great. Yeah. Let's go to you and your love of cooking or baking, whatever you might call it, and how your little side business has come around. So just tell people that story, what happened there.
Okay, so my little side business is actually, you know, my source of income now. So basically, let's say approaching the end of, like I told you, I took on a job. It was a temporary job. And towards the end, I was thinking, you know, what am I going to do? Like, I'm not happy, but I can't just like, you know, I can't do nothing. So there was a shop called Temple that opened, you know. It's an ice cream shop. And they recently opened, and I wanted to try every flavor on that menu. So I would go every single day to try a different flavor. And I was lucky enough to meet Zaid, and he's the owner. And we chit-chatted, you know. And I was telling him about my situation, and I told him that I enjoy baking. And he said, okay, why don't you bake something for me? And we'll see if it's nice, then we can sell it. And you can just supply me and just quit your job. So that's what happened. That's exactly what happened. I made these blondies. It was a recipe that honestly, I don't know. I just put things together, and yani, alhamdulillah, it worked out.
Did it work out first time, or was there a few different tries for your
There
blondies?
were a few different versions. Yeah. But the first version was good, but it's not exactly the same, you know. Anyways, and he liked it, and people seemed to enjoy it, and so yeah, it took off, and so now that's what I do. I'm a Blondie Maker.
A Blondie Maker. So if you don't know, the Blondie Maker does have Instagram. It's at NUMBERSONTOAST.
Yes.
Which we'll put up right here next to her. You can go and check her out. But these blondies, can people order them online on
Yes,
on
they
Instagram?
can order them through my Instagram.
I just like drop you a DM, or is there a link there?
Just drop me a DM.
Ah, how good's that? So I mean, it is like a small local business because
Yes,
you're not wanting to expand at any sort of rate. Like you're happy with the way it's going. You're happy with just supplying Temple Creamery. Who else do you supply? Anyone?
I just supply Temple for now, but I do sell them off of my.
I see.
Off of my.
You get a lot of business that way, or
Alhamdulillah, yes.
enough?
Yeah, enough.
Yeah, I do feel like these blondies, by the way, if you've never had one, if you're lucky enough to be a member at Eliath and lucky enough to be in the gym when she brings a box now and again, then you will know how tasty these blondies are. Like literally, you can't just have one. People go back for more and more.
I'm just happy to see people's faces.
Yeah, I think last time I had one, and then I slowly went over and had another, and then another, and I think I had like 4 blondies, which was.
I've had half a tray before.
Yeah, they're very addictive. But if you've not tried one, then obviously Numbers on Toast. Drop Bushra a DM. I'd definitely order some. Good for some sort of celebration, whether it's a birthday or something. Yeah, definitely try those blondies.
All my promo for me.
Yeah, I'm doing it for you. And Temple Creamery as well, the people that she does supply. I was there last night myself. I got a nice Sunday ice cream. It was like 8:30 p.m., which was very naughty of me. But again, I have a good relationship with food, so that's fine. If you've not been to Temple Creamery, head there, get an ice cream, and ask for the Blondie ice cream.
Get a Blondie soft serve.
For sure, because you will not regret it.
Yeah.
Apart from Instagram, is there anything else that you do business-wise with Numbers on Toast? Do you have any other social media platforms?
I do have a future plan. Like, I do want to do pop-ups here and there. So not just blondies. I have a few ideas.
Oh, come on.
A few surprises.
Can you tell anyone? Can you give us some info on
No.
that? No? Okay, so keep that quiet.
Yes, for now. Because I want it to happen. So inshallah. So yeah, I do want to do. I've done just one pop-up, like a collaborative pop-up with some other girls that also have a local business. So I'm open to that, So yeah, delving more into the F&B.
Yeah, maybe you can sort of sell it now if you want to collab with different companies. People are listening.
Look out for December.
Yeah.
Follow Numbers on Toast, and keep a lookout for December. Be here in December.
Yeah. But why would people want to collab with these blondies with you? And why would they want to eat these blondies?
Because they're incredible. They're the best blondies you're ever gonna have. And I have their macros if you're very diligent with that.
What are the macros of one blondie?
330 calories. But I don't have I have the breakdown, but I don't have the fat and carb and all memorized, I can put it up if you want.
Yeah, we'll do that. That's it. We'll have a link to Bushra's Instagram, which is great. Apart from the Instagram, you have a TikTok, right?
Yes,
Is it the same handle?
I'm not as active on TikTok because I don't know. I don't have a big audience yet. I'm more active on Instagram. Honestly, I'm just used to it. Maybe I should expand, inshallah, yani.
Yeah.
But yeah.
And what about this blog that you do?
There are recipes that I track. I track the macros for all of the recipes that I post. I post all things food. All things fitness. So.
Okay. Apart from TikTok, if you manage to get TikTok booming, I feel like most people are heading towards TikTok.
TikTok is great.
Yeah,
honestly.
I don't use it.
No, you have to. It's just.
I don't think the gym uses it either.
It's an addiction. Once you go on TikTok, you're gonna have a really hard time getting out of that app.
How do you know? You're not even doing it on Numbers on Toast. So before we do wrap up, what sort of advice would you give people listening about maybe setting up their own little side hustle business, or there's something that they're interested in? Obviously, you found a love for fitness and food. You sort of brought that together with regards to, finding a better fitness journey for you, finding people around you, that 9 a.m. class. And then you've also built sort of a business around food because you're so interested in it. What advice would you give people that wanting to do something like you, wanting to have a small local business, and they're just a little bit scared to get out there and do what they think that they love?
Don't think too much. Just do it. It doesn't have to be perfect. I know a lot of people are like, oh, you need to have, the most perfect packaging or the most, perfect brand. Just start. Just do it. Start with the people around you, your community. It's my community and the people that I am lucky enough to be surrounded by that are pushing my business, and alhamdulillah, it's thriving. So it's because of the people. So just start with your immediate circle, and hopefully it's going to pick up. Don't worry too much. So yeah.
Don't think too much. I love
Yes.
that, because a lot of people do overthink.
Yes.
No, I do. I mean, I do think that obviously not thinking too much and just starting a business, get it out there. Like you said, a lot of people do think too much, whether, you know, the marketing's right, whether the logo is correct, whether, you know, whether they got everything perfect before they push
Yes.
something out there. But I think it's important just to get it out there and then sort of learn as you go on. You know,
be
things can
confident of your
change
product.
for sure.
Yeah, and of what you're offering,
Mm-hmm.
but it doesn't have to be perfect. You know, you're gonna learn along the way. You know, most
Yeah.
businesses are like that.
How long has Numbers Untold been going for now?
2 years.
2 years.
Yeah.
And you find yourself still learning things
Yes.
as you go on.
Honestly, yes.
Yeah.
So
Love it. Well, maybe another 2 years from this podcast, we'll see Numbers Untold everywhere. We see blondies everywhere, and
inshallah.
Dubai will just be one big blondie. I think that's a good time to end. Again, thank you for coming on my podcast,
Thank you for
telling
having
everybody
me.
your story.
It
It's
was a
been
fun
wonderful.
time.
I can now understand why people was responding with Bushra to come on the podcast. Thanks again, and I'll see you in the gym. Thanks for listening, guys. A big thank you to our main podcast sponsor, Practical, for supplying guests with some tasty snacks, and you guys for watching on our YouTube channel. Please subscribe and let us know what you think by dropping a message in the comment section below.